Hey everybody, it's Atlas from Nexus at Night. So I have a deck profile for you today, which is Colony, kind of. Now, it should be noted that I did not come up with the idea for this deck. This came from a person in Living Proof's Discord. The idea is to use Colony in conjunction with some Stoicheia cards in order to grind your opponent out while also gaining an insane amount of card advantage. This has been referred to as Decay Meg in reference to, what was it, Decay something Dragon and Colony. But when it came out in English, the English name was Fabricated Dragon of Ruination. I still refer to it as Decay Meg. I'll have a link to the full list in the description, so if you don't want to watch the whole video again, you can. I'm just going to go through the cards, say what they do, and then at the end I'm going to talk about combos and stuff. So you got your V starter, which I feel like there's no reason not to run a V starter, no matter what the deck is most of the time. You got 4 copies of Fabricated Dragon of Ruination. So what he does is when you ride him on Vanguard Circle, you can pick an order card from your drop zone, normal order, and play it without paying the cost. So that means no counterblast, no discards, no soul blast, no anything. This only works when you ride it. He's also got Persona Ride, which means when you do that, you get a draw and then a 10k to your front row for the whole turn, even when you stride. Being a 13k base is nice for defense, but it's mostly this weird tempo swing where you can then get a bunch of cards, mostly due to 2 copies of this book. Now, this was one of the first orders we got when orders were introduced to the game, and most people ignored it. The effect is you counterblast 3, soul blast 3, draw 3 cards, and then 3 things in your front row. I think is it 3? Yeah, 3 things in your front row get plus 10k. So being that Colony is not an Excel clan, you will always have 3 units in the front row. The important thing is just because the cost is now stripped, thanks to Ruination Dragon, you just draw 3. If you got things in the front row, great. They get plus 10k. But it's mostly that you can, ride, play this for free, draw 3 cards. It's a plus 3 on ride, and then a plus 4 if you happen to Persona Ride. Actually, make that a plus 2 or a plus 3 because of ride minus. But still, your goal is to get this in the drop zone before turn 3, so you can just turn it on immediately and get that massive swing and card advantage. You got one of the orders that allows you to pick a rear guard or pick a circle, stand and unlock the thing on that circle. And then if you did either of those things, you draw a card. So this is literally just for the Link Joker matchup, but you can also use it to slow down decking out because it's only 1 card as opposed to 3. And there's a card that rests itself during the main phase. So you can then, if you have to play it like normal, you can just do that and stand it back up. Or if you're playing a mirror match for whatever reason. Now, note these are both grade 3 orders. This will come into play later. 2 copies of Hell Demise. Hell Demise's effect is when it's played, you pick an opponent's rear guard, rest it, and then pick one of your rear guards and stand it. This is a free ability. You run this instead of whatever his name is, Scissors, because it's free. So you can use your counterblast and soul for other stuff. He also prevents the thing in the same column as him in the back from standing. That's not super important, but it is a thing. The reason you only run 2 is you can search it out with a certain card and you can recycle them for reuse. So we'll get to that later. 4 copies of your Heal Guardian, which, duh. Everybody should know what Heal Guardians do by now. 4 copies of Shadow Cloak. Now, Shadow Cloak's ability is when placed from hand, you search your deck for an order card and just put it in drop zone. That's the most important part, is that you can search an order on turn 2 to put in drop to set up for Ruination Dragon. And then the other thing is if you play an order, you can Soul Blast and he gets 5k to end turn, which fine, I guess. And then if it happens to be part of Alchemagic, you bounce something. That's not the important part. The important part is just to go play, stick an order and drop, and then continue on with your life. You can intercept with it, discard it for something. After turn 2, he's mostly just kind of whatever, but you want to run 4 copies because you want to get an order and drop that early game. 4 copies of Giraffe, grade 2. So this came in the clan selection. So his effect is when he attacks, counterblast, and he gets 5k for each rested rearguard your opponent has. If he has 1 or less rested rearguards, so like early game, if you're doing this, he draws a card, which is nice. You can, get a card advantage, but also it allows you to get power if they happen to have a full board, or especially against an Excel clan. This gets freaking gigantic. And that's till end of turn, which means that if you use this with Hell-Demise, which I will get to later, this can hit for a massive amount of numbers. And then also, the thing in the same column as him on the opponent's side can't intercept or move, which, fine. Again, that's fine. It's free. Not super important, though. 2 copies of Red. What's his name? Stamping Red. So when placed on Vanguard, counterblast, put a cradle marker on an opponent's rearguard, and then if there's no rearguard to choose, you just draw one. And then during your turn, if your opponent's rearguard has a cradle marker, he gets plus 6k. So that allows you to hit force numbers if you have an 8k booster behind him. And I should know what cradle markers do. They look like this. And the effect is the thing with the cradle marker on it loses all of its original abilities, has its attack reduced to 0, or really the same power. So like on paper, it's to 0. And they can't boost or intercept. And then the other thing is when the opponent, or when the unit with the cradle marker is retired, you search your deck for up to 1 card with the same grade, put it into your hand, and shuffle. So you mostly do that to shut off important rearguards that the opponent has. So it's there, but it can't do anything. Basically, any rearguard that is important to your opponent's strategy, you can just play this turn 2 and shut it off immediately. There's also another thing you can play, which, again, I will get to later. This is also a flex spot. Like, Giraffe and Shadow Cloak are too important to the deck strategy, but you can kind of run any grade 2 you want. I did this because A, it looks really cool, but B, it has that same strategy that a certain grade 1 has for setting up cradle markers. Another order we're playing is Lyrical Veil. So the cost for this one is Soul Blast 2 and then discard 2 copies of itself. Then you pick up to 2 things from your drop zone, call them to rear, and then pick up to 5. Is it 5 of anybody's? Choose any number of any player's rear guards, and then they all get intercept and can intercept from the back row. So this is a way to make use of Ruination Dragon's effect without having to draw cards, which can help you prevent deck out. The cost, once again, does not matter. The funniest thing is guarding with the over trigger, which has 50,000 shield, and then you can use Lyrical Veil to call it behind Vanguard and then give it intercept, and then it's a 50k intercept, which is really funny and a good use of your over trigger if you happen to just hard draw it instead of actually checking it. 4 copies of Little Dorcas. So this is the top 5 grade 3 searcher. Because you only run 6 grade 3s and you only want to run 1 of them, this is very important. So, check top 5, grab a grade 3, discard something. That allows you to possibly get an order, which you then discard, or get your grade 3 that you want to ride and then maybe discard an order. The qualification for the plus 5k power is if there's nothing standing in the same column as him. So if you play this turn 1, this is hitting for 13k by himself for an incredibly easy condition to fulfill. So very important to run 4 of these just for the search and the easy shield and 13k power. Here's another very important card. This is high class Moth, the Gentleman. His effect is if he's in deck, is it deck, soul, or drop zone? Just deck and soul. He's regarded as a grade 3. This means that you can search him with a certain stride. But the important thing is that during your main phase, you can rest him, pick something from your drop zone, put it on bottom of deck, and also one of your opponent's rear guards can intercept. But the main thing is that you're recycling things like Hell-Demise which can then be reused with that certain stride. And you get a counter charge out of it. It's a hard once per turn, so it's not like you can have a back row full of these and put 3 things back, counter charge 3. That's pretty nuts. But this is the thing that I was talking about with the unsealing order that allows you to restand a guy, so you can like rest him and then do the thing and then put him back up with the restanding order and draw a card. So this is a very important grade 1 and one of the best things Ordercolony has gotten in a while. Yeah, so for this, no questions asked. I have 3 copies of Cleared Breeze. So this is the other thing I was talking about with Stamping Red. On play, you discard a card, draw 1, and then if it's a grade 3 that you discarded, you put a cradle marker on the opponent's board. So you can discard most of the orders. Everything except Lyrical Veil is a grade 3, which means this allows you to cycle through your deck early and set up cradle markers on the opponent's board. If they have nothing, you just get a drop and draw, which is fine. I did have this at 4, but I replaced it with a tech card coming up. This is a pretty flex spot also. Cradle markers aren't super important to the deck strategy. It's mostly just a boon. And then this allows you to cycle. I think that's the more important part than the cradle markers. 1 sleeve tugging bell because you need your drop zone to do stuff, and Narukami exists. So I think any Stoicheia deck that needs its drop zone that can find this fairly easily, which this deck draws a lot of cards, you want to use this because on play, you put all your bind zone back in your drop zone. So this can really mess up if you time it right. Screw up Narukami's day. 1 copy of Brilliant Blister. So this is the old version, not the new one, which is pretty bad. This one is just when you guard with it, the opponent's Vanguard cannot stand again during this turn. So it screws over things like Overlord. Any deck that restands mid-battle phase. You can obviously like cut down on copies of Cleared Breeze if you want to run more copies of this. I find the deck has a good enough hand size that it can usually live through the restanding stuff. But this is just another thing where if you time it right, you can screw up their day. Very much a tech option. Run another sleeve tugging bell if you like. Run a 4th Cleared Breeze. Whatever. Up to you. Then we got 4 of the Stride Fodder crit and 3 of the Shove and Soul draw crit. So Ordercolony, obviously, like there's some okay stand triggers, but you're mostly when your Vanguard is attacking, your front row is going to be standing at that point anyway. So crits are just good for like pushing damage early and maybe helping set up the grind game to just kill them. 4 copies of the draw PG. Ordercolony doesn't really have a lot of good, PGs with effects. And I know a lot of decks will run like 3 draw PGs and 1 grade 1 to help get around stuff, but I kind of just need the grade 1 slots for that. So I just did 4 draw PG. Once again, you can, if you're afraid of decking out, make this into a grade 1 PG, cut a Cleared Breeze or something. But personal choice. And then 1 just regular over trigger. The Stoicheia one works better with Excel clans, so I'm just kind of a fan of that. This allows you to, because it gives 2 things 100 million when you drive check it, that's your whole board. That's every front row. And then once again, the thing with Lyrical Veil where you can block with it, call it back, and then intercept for a large number. So now we're getting on to the Gzone. This is where the strategy becomes clear. Starting off, we have 4 copies of Guilty Empress, Darkface, Gridora. So this is the stride you are going into 99.9% of the time until you run out of them. So our effect is you counterblast, turn anything in Gzone face up. Your opponent's board cannot stand. So Vanguard, rear guards, nothing. They can't stand. And then until the end of your opponent's next turn, they cannot call anything from anywhere except for their hand. This means it shuts off G guards, which against Gold Paladin is really, really funny. It shuts off any deck that cannot call from hand, which against Gold Paladin is really, really funny. And then, yeah, so you want to go into this because it prevents the opponent from really doing what they want to do. They are forced to re-ride next turn, otherwise their Vanguard cannot stand. If any of their rear guards, are important to them, they can't be like, oh, I'm Pale Moon, I'll suck them back in, call them back out. They can't. They can only call from hand. The other effect is when it attacks, you Soul Blast 1 and call a grade 3 card from deck, it gets plus 10,000. So the idea is with this, you call Hell Demise. Hell Demise then, is called over something, but then he stands the thing on the other side, which means you're getting 5 attacks with this deck every single turn. The use of Gentleman High Class Moth will then put the Hell Demise back in, and then you can call it back out with this thing. This is a very good stride, and if Colony ever gets hit on the ban list, they're coming for this first, which sucks because Colony doesn't have a lot of really good strides. This is just such a good card. It's the most expensive card in the deck, unfortunately, but they reprinted other Colony strides that were like also important that I think needed to be reprinted, but this is the best card in the deck, honestly. You have 3 copies of Overwhelm. So Overwhelm's effects kind of doesn't matter because most of the time I'm flipping it with Gridora. But the actual effect is you counterblast 1, flip anything face up, which why would you? Draw the same number of cards as your opponent's rested rear guards. And then if it's 1 or less that were rested, she gets an extra crit and an extra drive, which fine, I guess. The other thing is Dark Device, which means if nothing in the same column is standing, all your units get plus 2k for each face down card in your opponent's damage zone. So the idea is supposed to be do this late game. Your board gets like a really big buff. So if they have like 4 things face down, that's plus 12 to everything, which it's just it's fine. I don't think it's enough. It's mostly just flip fodder for Gridora. Then we got 3 copies of Opterandus. So if you're playing against a deck that still needs to call things, that can call things from hand, his effect is GB2. You counterblast 2, discard a card. Your opponent can't call anything onto, anything to rear guard until the end of their next turn. So not from hand, not anywhere. It does not prevent the Vanguard from standing, which means they can still attack with it. But this is what you're going into when you like run out of Gridoras, is going into this thing. He doesn't flip anything, which is cool. And High Class Moth can at least refund one of the counterblasts. So very good stride. 3 of, I feel like, we're getting more strides and G guards coming up in this next year. So this might end up getting replaced. Now this will, but we'll see. You got 1 copy of Zoa. Why am I running Zoa in here? I do not know. I feel like it's a panic button. Like if you've gone into all your Ghidorah strides, you've gone into all your Obteranduses. They're not dead yet for whatever reason. So his effect is counterblast 2 and you ultimate stride it. Draw a card, call a card. It gets 99,999. You can't affect it with triggers. You can't restand it. Whatever. But if it hits the opponent's Vanguard, you win the game. This is also good for if you sense a moment of weakness. Most of the time, though, it ends up being flip fodder for Ghidorah. Really kind of sad. I just don't know what you would run in this spot anyway. You could run the Progenitor Dragon, which allows you to stride for free. But I only have 1 copy of it, and it's in my Great Nature, and I really don't care all that much. So, sorry. For the G-Guards, you have 3 copies of Morphosian, who, if the opponent has 2 or less rested or standing rear guards, she gets plus 10k shield. So that's pretty free. Depending when this happens, like usually first stride, the opponent either doesn't have a full board or they haven't called a full board yet. So you can just make this a 38 for free. So very nice. You have 1 copy of Relish, who, when your Vanguard attacks, they can either rest your rear guards or you draw a card, soul charge, and unflip something. That's usually what will let happen because they don't want their board to get messed up. You can run 2 of this and like cut down a Morphosian if you want, or cut down the Zoa for like being cheaper. But unfortunately, Colony's GB8 is kind of terrible, so it's just not worth the time. Lastly, you have 1 copy of Dismal to protect an important rear guard. So that's the deck. I will have a link to the deck log in the description, so you can just go find it if you want to. Thanks everybody for watching. And we'll see you next time.